Welcome to a new video. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. The first story is called, Write an Apology? When I was younger, I went to boarding school in the United Kingdom. Now for the uninitiated, boarding school is basically like a prison. Back then in the late 90s, we were just coming to the end of the era of older kids are in charge. By this point, I was a sixth former, around 18 years old, and my younger brother was in the same house and a fourth former, around 14 years old. At boarding school, there's a pecking order, and if you're a fourth former, you're on the bad end of the stick. A sixth former tells you to jump, you don't even ask how high, you go for a world record. That being said, I wasn't one of those sixth formers. I'd been through this as a younger kid. I was beaten up a few times, I'd run dozens of errands and faced my own fair share of bullying from my own year. I tell people some of the stories and watch their faces go white, but it's the crucible in which I found my confidence, my nicely balanced attitude, and my absolute hatred of bullies. Unfortunately, my brother wasn't rolling with the punches, so to speak. His housemates were gargantuan jerks, but my brother never just became comfortable being himself. He always tried to be their friends, and as such, they kept getting at him. I tried to help, but he always begged me not to. So it went on for the whole year. Nothing bad, but it was taking a toll on him. It was grinding him down. He just wanted to be friends, and these idiots just kept at him. So it's the second to last day of the year. The last day is usually just a half day, and then the families come and collect us. And my brother is just done. He calls our mother and asks to just be picked up a day early. Why endure another 24 hours of inescapable bullying? At some point in the afternoon, my mother walks into my room and says that these jerks have continued bullying him in front of my mother. She was in the dorm, helping him get his stuff together, and these guys are throwing barbs across the room. So, as you can expect, my mother was angry, and now I am too. I've stuck to my word to my brother and kept out of it. But now they are crossing lines. Not only that, but one of these kids is not even from our house. He's come into my house just to mess with my brother in front of my mother. So I follow her to the dorm. Now, the main culprit of the year of bullying is this one kid. He's exactly the kind of bully you'd expect. He's taller and massive, but that fat translates to strength at that age. The other bully is an almost embarrassing cliché, in as much as he's the smaller mouthy type that uses his big buddy to hide behind. They're both from rich Chinese families from Hong Kong. So I stride into the dorm and spot the smaller bully. The little jerk from another house. Before I continue, I feel I should point out that I was far from an intimidating specimen on paper. 150 pounds and a bit of fluff on my face. I'm not some mutant with a hairy back. But, as I mentioned, I've faced a fair amount in my time, and I'm not afraid to mix it up. I grab the bully by the scruff of his shirt, pull him out the dorm, push him against the wall, take his skateboard and place it across his neck, and then ever so directly inquire just exactly who he thought he was disrespecting my mother like that. Well, the other bully wasn't happy about that. Figuring he was almost the same height as me and probably tipping the scales in his favor, he decided to get in my face. A massive no-go as far as the unwritten rules of the school go. And then he swings at me. I'm standing next to my mother, and this entitled bully swings on me. His extra weight meant his hands weren't particularly fast, and I jerked my head to the side and his knuckle kissed my cheekbone. The other fourth formers actually gasped. I'll never forget that. I touch my cheekbone and calmly ask, "Did you just hit me?" "Yes, I did." "And what are you going to do about it?" "I'm glad," he asked. At this point, I decided to show him just what I was going to do about it. So I grabbed him by his throat and proceeded to kick him in the face. It was a glorious sound. That crisp sound of clapping your hands together. But why stop there? Let's give him a round of applause, shall we? At this point, one of the younger brothers of a fellow sixth former friend of mine jumps between us, saying he's had enough. While I still debate that point, I acquiesced and left him on the floor and walked off with my family as my mother patted me on the back with a "well done." Now, we aren't stupid. We walked straight to the housemaster's office, but he wasn't there. He was umpiring a cricket match against another school. So we hop in the car and drive to the other side of the school. And once there's a break in the game, I stride out onto the pitch and immediately say, "Sir, I just walloped this bully for a very good reason." At this point, I can see the bully staggering down to the pitch while being supported by a housemate. He's even put a band-aid on his face. He's really milking it, but suddenly spots me and my mother talking to his only salvation, and he knows he's rumbled. Now, boarding school isn't necessarily about the rules, it's about justice. So many things get dealt with in school, and you wouldn't believe the things that never go back to the parents. They weren't ignorant of the bullying my brother was receiving, but they were going with the whole "let's see if this works itself out" approach. They wanted us to learn to stick up for ourselves or something. However, a sixth former delivering a multitude of kicks to a younger boy's face is not something you can hide from parents paying tens of thousands of pounds a year. So, I was let go, but the issue was not done. Back at school the next term and the parents of both boys wanted revenge. The headmaster was relatively new at the school and was a jerk. He wasn't about the old ways and was a jerk about many things. He found a casual way to bring it up in conversation to me about how there had to be punishment. I agreed. I don't think he was expecting that. But I continued, I'm more than willing to accept a week's suspension for what equated to 2 minutes of bullying. If you also punish the bullies of my brother. And they were doing it for a year, so I guess you'll have to suspend them for a few years. Cue some very British muttering, and suddenly it seems like this is one of those times where it's getting swept under the rug. Clearly not. There must have been some behind-the-scenes negotiations with the parents, because a few weeks later, I was told that I would need to write a letter of apology to the parents of the bully. Now, as I mentioned, both of these kids were from Hong Kong but also Chinese. English is not their first language and their parents' understanding of it was significantly less. The thing about us British people is, we're really good at sounding like we're saying one thing while at the same time sinking the knife in with a smile on our face. I decided to follow this instinct. I sat down with one of my friends and a thesaurus and wrote what I still regard to be one of my finest pieces of work. We deliberately used overcomplicated terms to mask what was in no way whatsoever an apology. But it sounded like one. While it was littered with terms that sounded apologetic, to any native English speaker it was clearly putting 100% of the blame on the bully they produced while at the same time suggesting if he does it again, he'll be getting more of the same. I signed off and then couldn't resist a postscript, I do hope he didn't suffer any permanent injuries. Which of course is fluent British for, I sincerely hope it hurt when I smacked your son in the face repeatedly. I sealed that envelope as you seal away toxic waste. I couldn't run the risk of the school reading it because I'd be totally rumbled and placed it on my housemaster's desk. But 2 days later after lunch, my housemaster singles me out and asks I follow him to his office. I follow along, thinking about how I can get out of this. In we go to his office. It's about that letter to the parents. At this point, I'm thinking, oh well, I gave it a good go. But my housemaster continues, I had it typed up for you. And he hands me a pristine typed up version of my apology. I just need you to sign it. I look down. It's word for word. And right there under where I'm supposed to sign is a postscript just as I wrote it. Just sitting there all by itself. This housemaster was a legend. With a smile on my face, I gladly signed the final haymaker and had it sent on its way. Sometimes school isn't about the rules, it's about justice. The next story is called, No Black Bags. Norway just made this ridiculous rule about how to dispose of your garbage. It's supposed to be in a clear bag, however, the actual text only states that black bags will be turned back. The garbage people hadn't been to my house for 2 weeks and claimed I should be okay with dropping the excess garbage off, even though I only had black bags at my house. When I arrived at the dump, they turned me back and claimed that they wouldn't honor what the government agency had promised over the phone. I asked to get the exact wording of the new law and it stated as I said above, no black bags allowed. That's it. So I went and did what any sane person would do. I got stark solid non-see-through white bags and filled my stuff in it. Then I went back and when they tried to protest, I made them read through their own pamphlets and then enjoyed to throw my non-see-through bags in their trash bins. I plan to continue this tactic. Write a vague law so you can force us to buy new bags that are trash place approved, enjoy your otherwise colored bags that are no better. The last story is called, I Want to Speak to Your Manager. I work as a patient coordinator in a dental office and when a patient cracks a tooth or the tooth is severely worn down, a crown must be placed before the tooth cracks down to the root. An established patient of mine cracked the top part of a lower left molar and was fortunate enough of just needing a build-up and a crown, as in most cases the crack is down to the root. This patient got treated the same day as she walked in. After we put a temporary crown on, everything was fine and she was aware that a permanent crown can take up to 3 weeks to get back to our office. And in our office, the permanent crown must be delivered by the doctor that started the process, as each doctor has their way of doing the treatment. We scheduled the permanent crown delivery 2 weeks out. My new coworker who started in my office a week prior and was not accustomed to schedule like we do, accidentally scheduled the patient on a different doctor's date. Here is where the story starts. We called the patient a week prior to her appointment date, then 5 days, then 3, and then on the day of her appointment. Each time no answer, but we did leave voicemails. On the day of her appointment, the patient walks in and I say, "Hi, have you heard the voicemails we have sent?" I was hoping she did and was just coming in to reschedule. But I was wrong. And she is a trouble patient, because it is her way or she hits the highway. No, I don't have time to listen to my voicemails. I'm too busy making money. We have called you several times. Yes, I know you have called and now I am here. Okay, we were calling to let you know that we accidentally scheduled you with the wrong doctor and needed you to pick a day and time that best suits you on the days he was here. Did you have a time in mind? She looked like she was going to start spewing fumes and toxic gas out of every pore of her body. What do you mean, you scheduled me on a wrong day? This is a professional workplace and must act accordingly. If the doctor is not here, then just call him to get over here and do this tooth. I'm sorry, but unfortunately, he is out of town in another office. He will not be back. Just call him. It would only take a few minutes. And what is the big deal? Can't this other doctor just put the crown on? Sorry ma'am, but no. Per company policy, the doctor who started the procedure must be the one to finish it. Let me speak to the manager. I need to speak to her now. I hate those people who feel that they can just demand and receive. The good part is that this patient does not know or even seen who my supervisor is. My supervisor is the coolest boss around. But she is scary when she is having a bad day. She gave me the authority to act as an assistant manager when she is not around or able to help at that time. With this particular patient, she allowed me to be firm and direct but not rude. I agreed and on my rolling chair spun around 2 times and stood up and said, "Yes, ma'am, I heard that there was an issue with your crown delivery, am I correct?" The patient looked mortified and just realized that she made a horrible mistake and said, "Well, ma'am, the doctor who started the treatment on a tooth must be the same one that finishes it. You know that the crown is supposed to last just a few weeks, right? I'm terribly sorry, ma'am. I did not know you went to dental school. And, since you did, you must also know that temporary crowns can last anywhere from 3 weeks, and if taken good care of, up to 3 months without the permanent. Since you know that, that also means you are also aware that my employees did the best they could to get in contact with you to reschedule this date, right? Well, I am too busy to listen to voicemails. That is not my, or this office's problem. You decided that you did not need to listen to our multiple voicemails. We did you the favor of getting you seen on this date and this time. We could have easily said to wait another day. But since we were not overbooked, we squeezed you in our schedule. We could have told you to wait another day in pain because of our schedule, but you are an established patient with us and we wanted to help. See, I am a patient, and that means my word is law. And that means I am in the right. You should have scheduled me on the right day from the start. If you did, none of this would have happened. Ma'am, we are not perfect. We caught our mistake and called you multiple times to let you know ahead of time that we made a mistake and wanted to correct it. We called you several times, but you decided that you did not need to answer your phone or listen to your voicemails. You decided to come in today instead of calling to ask why we called you so many times. So, again, let us schedule you on the right day. Well, no, I am no longer your patient. I want my money back now. Okay, we are sorry to hear you leave. But before this conversation can continue, I do need you to sign a consent form, stating that you are no longer a patient with us. No, I want. I put my index finger up. No. Once you sign the consent, stating that you are no longer a patient with us and I scan it in and put it into your chart, then we will continue this conversation. But make sure you read this consent carefully, down to the very last detail, before you actually sign it, please. Keep in mind, the cameras are watching and listening to our conversation and you filling out this consent form. Well, whatever. Just give me the stupid paper so I can get on with my life. She fills out the consent and hands it back to me. This lasted her a good 5 minutes. All she did was skim through, initialing and signing down to the very last page. This form is a good 3 pages long, stating that all her documents, treatment plans, and miscellaneous forms will still be in our system until she is ready for them to be sent to any other office before we mark her as an inactive patient. Basically, our office will no longer be allowed to answer her personal dental or medical questions. Once she is done, she hands me the forms. Do you have any questions at all before you allow me to scan this in, put it in your chart, and mark you as an inactive patient? With her smug smile, she said, "No, I don't." So, I do exactly what I said I would do. Before I did, I made sure everything was initialed and signed. I scanned in the document, moved it to her folder, and before I marked her inactive, I said, "Are you positive that you are aware that once you are inactive, I will still talk to my regional manager to help me reimburse you for the crown and not for the build-up, and you will no longer be our patient, right?" With an annoyed expression, she said, "Yes." So I marked her inactive. When will I get reimbursed for this tooth? It depends on when my regional manager sees my email and replies. Whatever, as long as I get my money for this tooth. Ma'am, when you say tooth, you just mean the crown, right? Because, as I stated before, I marked you inactive, we will reimburse you for the crown and not the build-up. What? We will not reimburse you for the build-up. That is our doctor's treatment for you. I will still talk to my regional manager and have her help me reimburse you for the crown. Fine, call me when you do it. Let me know when I will be getting my money back. Sure, just make sure you pick up the phone this time, please. We do not want another incident like this to happen. Whatever. As she started to walk towards the door, she turns around and says, I need to use the bathroom. With the biggest smile I can give, I say, unfortunately our restrooms are for patients only. She scoffs, turns around, mutters something under her breath and pushes the door open angrily out of our office. I call her about 15 seconds to make sure we called the correct phone number. Of course, she does not answer. She does, however, come back into our office and asks, is my money back already? No, I was just making sure that this is the correct phone number to call you once it is in your account. Have a good day. Then she stormed out. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories in the comment section below. Have a great day. Bye bye.